Welcome back to Enter the Supply Chain World. I am Vikas Kumar and this is episode 4. Over the last 3 episodes, we built something solid together. We talked about what a supply chain is. We understood the 5 key players who run it. We know what a product is: raw materials, work in progress, finished goods, components. Today, we are going to cover what actually makes a supply chain work or break. It is called a process. We are going to understand exactly what a process is, how steps connect to create something bigger, and most importantly, what happens when even one step in the process breaks down. Let's get started and understand what is a process. A process is a series of steps carried out in a specific order to produce a result. That's it, nothing complicated. But let us make it feel real. Think about making a cup of tea. There are steps. We boil water first, then we add the tea, then we let it sit for a moment. After that, we pour it. We do not pour first and boil later. The order matters. The steps matter. That sequence, boil water, add tea, wait, pour, is a process. Now take that same idea and apply it to a supply chain. Raw materials are collected, they are transported to a factory. The factory processes them. The finished product is packed. It is loaded onto a truck. The truck delivers it to a warehouse. The warehouse sends it to a shop. The shop sells it to us. Every single one of those steps is part of a process, and together they form the larger process we call the supply chain. A process has 3 things that always show up. First, an input, what goes in, raw materials, information, energy, etc. Second, a transformation, what happens to it? It is changed, shaped, moved, or improved. And third, an output, what comes out? A finished product, a delivery, a service. Every process in supply chain, no matter how big or small, follows this pattern of input, transformation, and output. Let's think about it. Pick any task that we do daily: brushing our teeth, making breakfast, getting ready for work. Can we identify the input, the transformation, and the output? Every one of those tasks is a process. A supply chain is not one single process. It is actually a collection of many processes, each one feeding into the next. Let us walk through them using the same reusable steel water bottle example from last episode. The first process is mining and raw material extraction. So in this process, iron ore is extracted from the earth. The input is ground itself. The transformation is the mining and extraction. The output is raw iron ore. The second process is steel production. The raw iron ore enters a steel mill. It is melted, purified, and shaped into steel sheets. In this process, input is iron ore. Transformation is smelting, that is, melting iron ore at extremely high temperatures, and rolling, that is, pressing molten iron into flat, thin sheets. The output is steel sheets. The third process is manufacturing the bottle. The steel sheets arrive at a bottle factory. They are cut, shaped, welded, polished, and fitted with a lid. Input of this process is steel sheets and components. Transformation is cutting, shaping, and assembling. Output is a finished steel water bottle. The fourth process is quality check. Every bottle is inspected in this process. Does it hold water without leaking? Is the surface smooth? Is the lid tight? This is its own process and a critical one for making sure the product is right. Input of this process is finished bottles. Transformation is inspection and testing. Output is approved bottles ready to ship. Fifth process is packaging. Approved bottles are wrapped, labeled, and boxed. Input of this process is bottles and packaging material. Transformation is wrapping and labeling. Output is boxes ready to ship. Sixth process is transportation and delivery. The boxes are loaded onto trucks or ships and sent to warehouses and shops around the world. Input is packed boxes. Transformation is movement across distance. Output is products available at the point of sale. Overall, in this example, we have seen 6 processes, 6 input, 6 transformations, and 6 outputs. And they are all connected like links in a chain. Now, here is the important question. What happens if one of these processes breaks? A supply chain is only as strong as its weakest process. When one stop fails, everything after it feels the impact. Let's think about it practically. If the steel mill stops production, the bottle factory has no steel sheets to work with. If the bottle factory cannot work, there are no finished bottles. If there are no finished bottles, the warehouse has nothing to ship. If the warehouse has nothing to ship, the shop has empty shelves. And if the shop has empty shelves, we go home without our bottles. One broken process, 6 steps affected. This is called the domino effect in supply chains. Like dominoes lined up in a row, when the first one falls, the rest follow. And this is not just theory. We are watching this happening right now. In 2025 and continuing into 2026, a wave of trade tariffs has fundamentally disrupted the processes of global supply chains. Trade tariffs means taxes placed on goods crossing between countries. Companies that had built their production processes around sourcing materials from one part of the world suddenly found those routes becoming far more expensive almost overnight. Businesses did not just feel higher costs, their entire processes were forced to change: who they buy from, how they transport goods, where they store them, and how long each step takes. What was once a smooth, predictable process becomes unpredictable and expensive. And the lesson is clear. A process that works beautifully in stable times can be deeply fragile when the world shifts. Think of a time when one small step in our daily routine went wrong and how it disrupted everything that followed. A supply chain feels exactly that, just on a much larger scale. Now, let us go one level deeper because not all processes work in a straight line. There are two ways processes can be organized. The first one is sequential processes, where one step must be fully finished before the next one can begin. In our bottle example, steel must be produced before it can be cut into shape. The bottle must be assembled before it can be inspected. These steps cannot happen at the same time. They happen one after another. The second type is parallel processes, where multiple steps happen at the same time, independently of each other. While the bottle body is being made in one part of the factory, the lid is being made in a completely different part by a different supplier, perhaps in a different country. Both are happening simultaneously, and only at the end they come together in the final assembly. Parallel processes make supply chains faster. Instead of waiting for each step to finish before starting the next, multiple things are done at once. Think of it like a kitchen preparing a meal. The chef is not waiting for the soup to finish before starting the salad. Both are being prepared at the same time, and everything comes together on the plate at the right moment. Smart supply chains are designed to run as many parallel processes as possible because time is cost, and reducing time reduces cost. Here is something that connects deeply to the world we want to build. Every process uses resources: energy, water, raw material, human effort. And every inefficient process wastes more of these resources than it needs to. A factory that takes too long to make a product burns more energy. A truck that takes a longer route than necessary uses more fuel. A process that produces a lot of waste creates material that goes into landfills instead of back into the world. This is why process efficiency matters, not just for business, but for the planet. An efficient process produces the same output with fewer resources, less energy, less water, less waste, and that directly translates into a more sustainable supply chain. Companies around the world are now redesigning their processes not just to save money, but to reduce their environmental impact, choosing renewable energy to power factories, designing processes that generates less waste, rethinking packaging processes so that less material is used and more can be recycled. Every improvement in a process is a small step towards a supply chain that the planet can sustain. Think of one process in our daily life where we waste something: water, food, electricity. What would it look like if we made that process just 10% more efficient? Let us recap what we discussed today. A process is a series of steps carried out in a specific order to produce a result. Every process has an input, a transformation, and an output. A supply chain is a collection of many processes connected together. When one process breaks, the domino effect can disrupt every step that follows. Processes can be sequential, one after another, or parallel, happening at the same time. Process efficiency reduces waste, saves resources, and is one of the most powerful tools for building a sustainable supply chain. Before we wrap up, here is a trivia. According to the Business Continuity Institute's Supply Chain Resilience Report 2024, almost 80% of organizations had their supply chain disrupted at least once in a single year, with most experiencing between 1 and 10 disruptions.